Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video will be a little bit different. There will be gameplay. I'll show some gameplay too, just to break it up, so you're not just staring at my ugly mug the whole time. But I did have some stuff I wanted to talk about regarding PvP and where it is right now, where it is headed, where we came from, all that stuff. Sort of encapsulate this journey we've been on and kind of take stock of where we are. And it's not going to be an overly positive video. You know, I always try to be a positive person, and even like this season as well, I've been very positive in terms of Lightfall, what it offered. I've been scoring Lightfall as a package very highly for what it is. And people keep coming to me and they're like, but what about PvP? How can you say Lightfall's a good DLC when PvP is the way it is? And I just say, I'm scoring Lightfall based on what it is, not what it isn't. They never made any promises for PvP with the Lightfall package, so it'd be like if I were to buy a Mountain Dew and scored it a 3 out of 10 because it wasn't a Coke. Like, I knew that when I bought it, right? So the game is kind of fragmented into two halves. We have the monetized content, the expansions that you pay for, that you buy, and Bungie dumps almost all of their time, energy, and resources into that content. Then we also have the free-to-play portion of the game, and they have some live service teams that help just maintain those, but that content isn't monetized, so it's not a priority. So PvP falls under that umbrella. It's part of the free-to-play. I mean, there's no playlist you can go to outside of Trials that you got to pay money for. I mean, even Iron Banner at this point, you can be a new light account and be in Iron Banner because they took away the power level advantages, so you don't have to buy the new content to level up, all that stuff, right? So outside of Trials, and that's only paywalled to keep the cheaters at bay. That was a way to remedy that problem. So in terms of the paid content, PvP doesn't fall under that umbrella. And because of that, Bungie does not dedicate time, energy, and resources to it like they do the PvE experience, right? So we've sort of just been in maintenance mode, right? Keep the playlists alive, keep PvP functioning. And so a lot of that meant whittling down the PvP experience to just a smaller number of playlists. That way the PvP population, as it continues to go down, we just get funneled into a smaller group of playlists. So that would help alleviate some of the matchmaking issues. But as we know, a few seasons ago, they implemented skill-based matchmaking into the game. And we've been on a journey. There's been lots of changes that have come with that, and it is a very contentious point. I'm not going to argue that. People either love it or they hate it, and they feel very strongly about it and will use strong words when they talk about it, especially to people who don't fall on the same side of the fence that they do. So I know that this video will probably stir up some of those emotions in people, so let's just try to be respectful. I know it is a challenge, but let's at least give it a shot. So let's start breaking down some of the issues I see with PvP right now. So we have this dynamic skill, feature with the matchmaking where Bungie said, okay, well, we understand. They said, we know, we can see the data. Things are not good for people on either end of the skill gap. If you're a very good player or a very bad player, your experience is very bad right now. And we recognize that. We want to help with that. So we are going to implement a system called dynamic skill ranges, where it will try to, instead of forcing a match against people it thinks is your skill level and sacrificing connection quality in the process, instead they're going to open up the skill parameters to try and grab people to fill the gaps in that lobby for that match, even if they aren't at that same skill level as you are. So hopefully that will alleviate some of the connection quality issues. Here's what I'm experiencing. That's really not working too well. And because there's a couple of reasons here. One, they didn't really fix lobby bouncing issues. I mean, I will probably show, I've got tons of screenshots from this season alone that can show how badly Bungie is doing at balancing lobbies right now. Like, completely mismatched matches in ways that I don't think I've ever experienced to this degree before. Like, it's really exaggerated. It's very bad right now, to the point where I was saying on Twitter, like, I think something might be off. Like, maybe there's a glitch in the system, a bug somewhere that's causing their systems to not work properly, because it is way more consistent than it ever was with connection-based matchmaking. And and I know I'll get lit. I'll talk about this later in the video, and I'll get lit up for it. But my stats absolutely prove that point. And we'll get to that later, and that'll make people mad. I know it will. Well, they did not fix lobby balancing. So when you do this dynamic skill range thing, what happens is the same thing that happened way back in the day with connection-based matchmaking when things were still pretty good, but we were saying, hey, one of the things you might want to fix is your lobby balancing because it punishes the worst player in the lobby. So it tries to offset the extremes. So it'll take the best guy in the lobby and give him the worst two players in the match, right? To sort of try and offset. And that's because they never implemented outlier protection, which is something that we as the PvP community were constantly saying. It's not that we need strict skill-based matchmaking, but we need outlier protection to make sure that those people who are ones on a scale of 1 to 10 never end up in lobbies with 10s. But when you have skill-based matchmaking in effect, it actually makes that scenario much worse. So they could be a 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. But since the lobby is all 9s and 10s, it's going to shaft one of the teams with the 6. And the gap between a 6 and a 9 and a 10 is really wide. And so it actually exaggerates that issue even more. It makes their experience terrible, and it makes the people on the team that have the 6s, they're out of luck, right? It's not going to be a good experience for them either, because it would be like going into a trials match or a comp match in a 2v3. So even though it's a difference of one player, the amount of an uphill battle that is pretty astronomical at that level of play. Okay, so that's one reason why dynamic skill doesn't work too well. The other reason is because dynamic skill does not actually trump skill-based matchmaking in my experience. So even though the player population is getting smaller, the people that tend to stick around the longest are the dedicated PvPers who have historically loved Destiny PvP. So dynamic skill doesn't even need to kick in because usually there's a few hundred of us on at any given time. And so because of that, I'm seeing the same players, the same people day after day after day after day. And some of you know, I'm talking to you, Aquila, Kretza. If I get to know you guys any better, I'm going to have to stand up in your weddings because I'm matching the exact same people all the time. And that makes for really unfun quick play experience. Really unfun quick play experience. So skill-based matchmaking is just constantly putting us all against each other. And when we break those lobbies apart, if there's a mercy, if the score limit is, or the score at the end of the match is really stark, and it breaks the lobby apart, it puts us right back together. The exact same people, very next match, maybe one or two of us leave and do something else. But for the most part, it's all the same players just put back. They rip the lobby apart and stitch it back together over and over again. They're like, that was a bad match. That they literally put that on screen. That was a bad match. We're breaking those teams apart to try and get you a better match. And then it puts us right back in together like it expects it to play out any differently. And it doesn't. It doesn't. So I'll definitely show some screenshots of some of those matches for sure. We also still have connection issues. Because skill-based matchmaking is a thing, connection priority goes down, right? And it used to be the number one priority with connection-based matchmaking. But in skill-based lobbies, connection takes a back seat. They say it's still a factor. It's still something they try to guarantee, and I believe them. But when you start to sacrifice even a little bit on connection, it has serious ramifications for gameplay. A lot of times, I'll be peak shotting somebody. I'll take a shot, I'll hit, I'll peek back out, take a shot and hit, and I get bodied, right? And so I will think that I have a second, right? On my screen, they are not out of cover yet. Then maybe they're swapping weapons. And so I'll stay there for an extra second or a brief part of a second, see nothing, and peek back in. And now, while I am around the corner, even though my visual experience says you are safe, bam, a hand cannon shot comes in and cleans me up. And the bullet trail comes through the wall. This happens all the time. Happens a lot. A lot of times you'll be peek shotting and you'll think they missed a shot. So you'll peek out again because your health didn't go down. But in reality, the game says, no, they did shoot you. We just haven't given you that information yet. And even though it's just a fraction of a second, it matters because I peek out again thinking I can take 2 more shots. But the reality is that I can only take 1. So they take 1 more shot and then I just go from what I should be able to survive 2 shots. I go from that to dead instantly. And then it updates the damage a little bit late. And so it's this delayed information that really has serious ramifications in gameplay, in your duels. And so connection is still an issue. Another thing I think is important to talk about is the constant bugs. Now, I know people write bugs off, and I don't know why they do this. But we've been complaining about the invisibility glitch for a couple weeks now, and it has made PvP nigh unplayable. Like, it completely ruined the PvP experience. And everyone said, oh, they know about it. They already told you they're going to fix it. It's like, yeah, well, that doesn't change the fact that we have to wait a couple of weeks as PvPers to get PvP in a playable state. Like, it shouldn't have happened to begin with. So I think people write off bugs as, things that we can't hold against a developer. And I think that's silly. I think that anytime there's a bug, I think it's very fair to be, you can be patient with them, but you also need to be realistic and say, we understand that bugs happen, but some bugs really suck and probably shouldn't have happened. I don't understand how a bug that egregious makes it through playtesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the cause of the bug is. And it's not just that, right? If it's one bug, we can be patient, no big deal. But there's the invisible players bug that's been going around, hopefully fixed today. But there's other stuff like the maps being wrong. How many times now have we voted for a map for Trials as a community, and when Trials launches, it's not the right map? There were like 4 weeks in a row last season where they said, here's the map, everybody. And we said, cool. And we went in to play Trials, and it was a completely different map. Maybe it was the same map as last week. Maybe it was Javelin 4 again. You know what I mean? Like, it just continued to happen, and they had to continue to scramble to get the right. It's like, how many times does that have to happen for us to get it right? You know what I mean? I don't know. And then there's even been like these recent error codes. I think I've got a clip of it too, but it's happened to me several times where I'll be in the middle of a gunfight. Maybe I'm winning. Maybe things are going really well. I've got there was one on Burnout where I had like a triple kill lined up, and then suddenly, boom, black screen. And it shows an error code. And then it just sends me to the respawn, and I just respawn somewhere. And I'm like, what the heck? I was in a fight. I was winning. I was doing well. You know what I mean? And it's like, why is that happening? There's just these constant bugs that we get bombarded with over and over and over and over again. And I think that it's very fair to hold that against them and say, listen, PvP isn't a priority. We get that. But it still really sucks. Like, you see a bug that gives people artifice armor for making a guy fall off the cliff. And people exploit it for a few hours. And Bungie throws everything they've got at it to get it, fixed and out of play immediately. But when a bug breaks PvP for weeks, it's on the back burner. We'll get to it. Yeah, we'll get around to that. We'll sort that out eventually. And that sends a message to PvPers that you don't matter as much as the people who are paying for content right now. And I understand it's a business, but it doesn't change the fact that it sucks. Now, I've also had a lot of people make this claim that skill-based matchmaking has not changed anything. I see these comments in my comment section. I see these comments on Twitter. I had an exchange with someone today even where they're like, it's all placebo. Skill-based matchmaking has been dialed back. It's been walked back so many times that it's no different than what connection-based matchmaking was. That is 100% false. That is not true at all. If that were true, and I know that people are going to get mad the second I do this, they always do. But if that were true, don't you think my stats would look very similar right now to the way they did in Season 17? You would think that we are two different players. If you look at a screenshot from my stats from Season 17 to a screenshot of my stats in the current season, and it's not that I have barely played any of this. A lot of people be like, oh, it's only been a few weeks. How much could you have played? I've got 3 resets in. I played, I'm in the triple digits for the number of matches I have played in PvP. It's a lot. I got a lot of data to pull from here. But you would think we were two different players. You look at these screenshots side by side, you'd be like, oh, that guy's top-notch player. Hey, he's a pretty good player. He's, 2.5 KD out here. He's slaying. And then you look at my stats today, and it's like 50-50 win rate, 1.5. He's pretty average. He's a pretty average player. Maybe I am. Maybe I got worse in a few seasons. I don't know. But you look at the comparison here. SBMM is having a real effect. You might say, I love the effect that SBMM is having on people. You might be in that camp, but you can't deny that it is having a serious effect. And in my case, I went from having good connections, some occasionally imbalanced lobbies, but I'd still play well. And I had stats that showed I was a good player. I went from that to where I am now, where connections are being sacrificed. I'm playing the exact same people over and over again. My player population may as well just be a few hundred at any given time of day. And my stats are getting tanked to make me look pretty average. And like I said, the comparison there is so stark. It's such a severe drop-off that you would think we were two different players. So you cannot look at, and this isn't just me, by the way. This is this is everybody in that skill bracket. And you might love that. And that's fine. If you were in the camp where you're like, that's great, I love that your stats got tanked to TV. You deserve to play only against people your skill level. Even you deserve to be sweating it out every match you play against the top percent, even in quick play, no matter where you go. That's what I want for you. You're allowed to believe that. I disagree with you, but you're allowed to believe that. But you can't look at those stats and say it had no effect. Skill-based matchmaking has had a huge effect on the game for the people who love PvP the most. And regarding skill-based matchmaking, here's another thing I have an issue with. They shipped it incomplete by their own admission. Okay, when they first rolled out their skill-based matchmaking system, they said, we've got all these other things we're going to do to skill-based matchmaking. We've got plans to modify it, and systems like team-based matchmaking we're not done with yet, but it's coming. So when they shipped it to us, they said, this isn't done. It's not finished, but we're forcing it onto you everywhere. So I didn't really care for that, to ship something that was incomplete prematurely. I understand that they wanted to use us as their test dummies to try and figure out where the gaps are in their system and modify it. But it's been a long time, and it's not better. Like it doesn't feel better. It doesn't feel fixed. And the player population in PvP is not getting better. Like if the goal was to bring more casual people into the game and infuse them into PvP and make them want to stay, we have not accomplished that. This has been a net loss because not only are casual players not coming to PvP and staying there like you wanted them to, if they have proof of that, please feel free to show it to us, because it would soften the blow. It really would. I would love to see that. But they haven't given up that data, even though we've asked them time and time again. They've given us other fringe data that we're like, okay, but how's that important? And they don't say. There's like, here's a graph. It's going well. You know what I mean? They're not giving us that data that shows they've accomplished what they set out to accomplish. So it's a net loss because they're not infusing new casual players into PvP. And they're losing pretty quickly players that were dedicated PvP enthusiasts. Net loss. And it's funny, and I will admit, I mean, it's just this isn't raw, hard data. But there have been times, and I've got these exchanges on Twitter that lots of people interacted with. I'm not making this up. It's all public. But I've had these exchanges where I've said, listen, things aren't going well with SBMM. And I'll have people say, I'm playing so much more. I love it. And then I will, and this isn't me being a jerk. It's me wanting to know, right? I'm not trying to gotcha moment. I just want to know, is that true? And I will look up their stats. And there have been 2 times now where people have said that, and I've gone and I've looked at their stats, and I tell them, listen, and I'll show them the screenshots. I hope you don't mind. I hope this isn't invasive. But I looked at your account history. You're actually playing less PvP these past couple of seasons than you did the seasons of connection-based matchmaking before them. You actually have dropped off in your PvP experience. And they're like, oh, I had no idea. And I believe them. I believe that they weren't trying to lie to me. I believe that they weren't intentionally being dishonest. I just think that it was maybe a placebo where they think, since skill-based matchmaking is in the game, they think that their experience is better. They think that they're enjoying it more. They think that they're playing more. But the reality is that their stats didn't actually change. And if they did, one guy, his stats went up just a little bit, but he also played a lot less. And so stats going up a little bit when you play a lot less, you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. Like I had a season where I had a 4.5 KD in survival. And I was like, oh, I must have been fragging out. And I go in and I look in, it's like, I only played like 20 matches. I just had a really good 20 matches. If I had played 150 matches, I probably would have been more in like the 2.0 range, or maybe even lower once I start playing people my skill range. So you got to take that with a grain of salt. But it is interesting that So far, when people make that claim, I have found it to be untrue. So if we look back at when PvP population numbers were the healthiest, where it was the most booming, what was going on? What are the common denominators there? And it's more than just the matchmaking, which I'll get to in a second, but it was connection-based matchmaking. Like until they come out and show us irrefutable proof otherwise, I got to go off the API and what the API tells us. And so far, the most healthy player population seasons we've ever had in Destiny's history, it was connection-based matchmaking in quick play, right? Maybe not everywhere in the game, but at least in quick play, the casual experience, that's what it was. If you want to attract the most casual players to this experience, history tells us variable skill lobbies does that more than skill-based matchmaking lobbies do. There's a lot of reasons for that. It could be because when skill-based matchmaking is in effect, every player understands that every person they're going to come against poses a genuine threat. And the second a second person shows up to their gunfight, they bail. Because their chances of winning against two people in a 2-on-1 who are their skill level are really bad. Like, that's not a good chances there. So they bail. It slows down gameplay. And because it slows down gameplay, you're going to the time limit more often, which means you're not getting in as many matches. You're not having as much fun because you're not getting into all these dynamic fights. And so you tend to play less because you just didn't enjoy it as much because it slows things down so much. But when there's variable skill levels represented in the lobby, every gunfight is a question mark, you know? And so you might play it loosey-goosey. You might play a little reckless. You might try out some silly stuff, some fun builds. You might go into it with a much more lackadaisical attitude. And so you're hitting the score limit more. You don't care as much because you're not playing people specifically your skill level. You know, you're not trying your heart out in every single engagement. You're just trying to go in there for fun. And it's a little bit more lighthearted. Things move more quickly. Like when there's variable skills represented in a lobby, like it just tends to be a much more dynamic experience overall. But connection-based matchmaking isn't the only factor in those seasons where the player population was the healthiest. The other major contributing factor is something that has me concerned because I don't see this changing in Destiny 2 before they move on to whatever the next thing is for the Destiny universe. So I don't think this is going to happen anytime soon. But during those seasons, when the player population was the highest, Destiny 2 was not, well, Destiny in general, was not just free to play. Instead, the PvP content was sort of wrapped up in the paid content, and there was a constant injection of content into PvP as part of these major DLC packages. They go like Forsaken, where PvP got tons of new maps, new modes, you know, and there was just this injection of a ton of content into PvP alongside the trickle-down content from PvE, like the new guns, the new subclasses and abilities that come down from the PvE side and infiltrate PvP, alongside a slew of new maps and new game modes and new experiences and reward systems. But it used to be that PvP would get a serious injection of content alongside these major DLCs. That doesn't happen anymore, right? Lightfall brought nothing. There's nothing. Like, all they did was change up the map rotation. There's no new content. We didn't get new map. It's just modifying the content that's already there a little bit, just to shake it up a little bit, right? They kind of shake the bag. Maybe they give us one thing here or there, like, hey, here's a new gun for trials for you to chase, right? That's not an injection of content. Not one new gun and maybe one new mode in Iron Banner, which we don't know, maybe. That does not compare to what we used to get. You know what I mean? It's not even remotely close. We used to sit at the table with the PvEers at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse every time a new DLC dropped, and we would eat like kings. But now the new DLCs drop, we're out in the doghouse, and Bungie maybe throws one bone out to us and waves just to keep the Humane Society away, and they go back in the house and with the PvEers sitting up at the table, ready to have a feast with a new raid, new strikes, new exotic quests, new location, new patrols, new guns, new loots, new subclasses, new. Whether they like that content or not, it's an infusion of a ton of content, and we don't get any. So, here's my synopsis. If we want Destiny 2 PvP to be good, I think there's two things that have to happen. One, I think this matchmaking system has proven, so far, it's not cutting it. I think we need to roll it back. I think we need to return to connection-based matchmaking in the regular quick play playlists. And I know people will have an issue with that. I understand that. I also think that they need to implement outlier protection to guarantee that if you are on one end of the extremes, you can never match each other unless you're in a pre-made fire team. You should never cross paths. When the matchmaking is taking people into account, just grabbing based off connection alone, it should also say when it grabs one, be like, oh, no, that guy can't. That guy's going to have a bad time. It should be able to recognize that as it's grabbing based off connection alone. It should be able to recognize, oh, no, not that guy, not that guy. He would not have fun here. That would be bad. It should be able to recognize outliers and say, no, not for this match. And then they need to take another good look at how they balance the teams. Once they've got 12 players together, and now it says, all right, let's break them into groups of 6. It needs to do a better job, and it can't just be off of average skill alone. You can't just be like, let's average out the skill levels of both teams, because we've learned that system, what they did in the past, didn't work. It led to really mismatched matches. So that's step 1. I think step 2 is injecting, and listen, I want to pay for it. I want to pay for it. But you need to inject PvP with new content regularly. It needs to be a part of these DLCs. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think they can ship a DLC ever again without PvP getting some of that content, right? Being part of that package deal, like a good chunk of it. If they don't do that, PvP will die off, because I understand the choices being made at Bungie from the top down. From a business perspective, PvP is not monetized content. Why would we put a bunch of devs on PvP right now when there's nothing in PvP that directly gets us money? We need money because we need to pay our workers. We need to fund future, projects, games, IPs. We got bills to pay. I get that. I want to pay you. I do. I want to pay you money for content because I love Destiny. I do. I love Destiny. And I want to play PvP more, and I want to do it. I want to do it on Europa. I want to do it in the Clovis Bray facilities. I want to do it on Neo Muna. I want to do it in all these cool environments that you're giving people. I want to do it. I want to fight there. I want to shoot other Guardians there. Let me pay you for it. But until they have a return of paid content for PvP, I think it will continue to just be maintained. And that's it. And that's it. Now, when I share these opinions, I make these videos, I also understand I am not a game developer. I'm not. I don't know what's going on behind those doors, okay? I don't understand everything there is in terms of nuance about how content gets made. I know some. I've been exposed to that world for quite a while now. I know some, but I don't know all of it. And so I also come at this from a position of a little bit of ignorance too. So I recognize that. I don't think that what I say is gospel, so take it with a grain of salt. But from the outside looking in, from a consumer perspective, somebody who has loved consuming your product for almost a decade now, and now the product is it's not tasting as good. It's clearly not good. And I think something needs to change. So I'm throwing out ideas, take them or leave them. But ultimately, if you're a Bungie game dev watching this video, I don't mean to insult. I don't mean to be presumptuous and assume that I know more about game dev, because I don't. So I hope you hear this from a position of a consumer who's just saying the product doesn't taste good anymore. I don't have the answers. Obviously, I'm not a game developer. You guys know a lot more about this than I do. But it would be my preference to love this product again. Because if I can't find it in my heart to love this product again, as a consumer, I have to go elsewhere with my patronage. And I don't want to do that. I love Destiny. I don't want to do that. And that's ultimately where I'm at with it. So I hope this was at least calm and insightful and thought-provoking and not just come across as complaining or whining. I want everyone to have fun with PvP. Not just me, not just the high end of the skill gap. I want everyone to enjoy it. And I don't see verifiable evidence that these changes that we've made in the last year have helped more people have fun. It looks like the opposite, in fact. So that's where I'm at. Thanks so much for being patient with me. Thanks for letting me make this video. Thanks for, if you got to the end of it, hey, let me know in the comment section. Even if you disagreed with everything I said, be like, I hate you, True Vanguard, and everything you said is a lie, but I watched the whole video. Hey, I'll leave a heart on your comment because I appreciate you taking time out of your day to watch the video. So let me know in the comments if you got to the end. Maybe pull out one thing of the discussion today and just say, hey, this resonated with me. This speaks to my experience as well. Or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're saying, it's interesting that you say that, TV, because I'm experiencing this, the opposite. You know what I mean? Let me know. I would love to hear feedback from you guys too, because that's how we sort of push change in any environment, is the collective insights that we offer. Thank you so much. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the crucible. Bye-bye.